Okay, so keeping with my recent theme of travel, there's a number of videos, or a number of subjects, I should say, that I want to discuss. And whether I encompass these all into this one video or not, I'll see. Because, like most of my videos, this is just going to be spontaneous. But I'm going to start off by an observation that in recent years, we've seen this phenomenon of badly behaved tourists being exposed or being getting a lot of attention. And some countries stand out more than others. Now, one country that stands out is China. There has been a phenomenon in recent years of the badly behaved Chinese traveller. This is a big phenomenon in Southeast Asia, in countries like Thailand and Cambodia, where there is has been tensions um, because of the prevalence, the number of Chinese tourists who go to these countries and just show no respect. They smoke where they're not meant to smoke. They take pictures in temples where they're not meant to. And they generally just have a bad attitude. Um, but there's also been a lot of videos emerging, and you see this in both Chinese sources and other sources, of commuters behaving in the most, and I say commuters because this also includes domestic journeys, behaving in the most obnoxious way you can imagine. In one situation, a woman apparently threw hot noodles at an airline attendant. I'm not sure which airline it was, but she threw hot noodles at the airline attendant. Her boyfriend then threatened to blow up the plane. Now, I hope they're serving a jail sentence, I really do. There was another example of a young Chinese woman, supposedly a PhD student, and she actually assaulted um, an airline attendant in Wuhan Airport, for Air France. Well, Air France banned her, and she served 10 days detention. Whether that was at Wuhan airports or by local police, I'm not really sure. Personally, I think it should have been harsher. Um, it's absolutely disgusting that some people think they could behave this way, and it's it is obvious that China has a serious problem with this, because even the Chinese government has recognized it, and this actually prompted them a few years ago to make an official kind of guidelines, pamphlet, if you like, for how people should behave abroad. Now, it would be easy to dismiss this as just ignorant peasants, people who've never traveled outside China before. But more often than not, these are educated people, supposedly, who come from privileged backgrounds. So we're not talking about some ignorant peasants from the countryside. We're talking about people who should really know better. And I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's partly, and don't get me wrong with that. I'm not demonizing all Chinese, and I'm going to come to that in a second. But I think there's a phenomenon with the one child thing. Frankly, a lot of these people are entitled brats. They think they could do whatever they want, wherever they want. Now, this is a caveat. If you've had the patience to listen to me up to this point and you're Chinese, I want to make an important point here. China's a huge country, 1.4 billion people. So you cannot generalize all Chinese people. Certainly, I don't know any Chinese, and I know a lot of Chinese people who would behave this way. And I imagine most of them would share disgust at the behavior of these people. In fact, some of the biggest critics of their behavior are Chinese, because they say it's a national embarrassment for them, and they recognize it. They know this is a problem, and they know that these people are bringing their country into disrepute. So when people come out with frankly racist comments about all Chinese, you need to remember, firstly, it isn't everyone. Of course, it's not everyone. And yes, the people who do this are disgusting. I think people who attack airline attendants, physically attack them, I think they're disgusting. I think they should be jailed myself. I mean, the Chinese government was actually pondering on naming and shaming them. And it's not often I defend the Chinese government, but on this occasion, if they go ahead with that, I think they're right. These people should be named and shamed. Um, but like I said, it isn't just internationally; they do it within China as well, and it's appalling. They think that because someone's wearing a uniform, because they're an official from an airline, that somehow gives them the right to treat these people like dirt. You know, that like, oh, you're there to serve me, therefore I'm going to treat you like a slave. No, they're human beings and they're doing a difficult job, and you should show some respect to them. It's really disgusting behavior. Um, I've never directly witnessed it, but I've seen lots of video footage of this. Now, I mentioned that some countries, plural, are known for this. I think China, if we're being honest, probably has a worse reputation right now, but it's by no means unique. You get badly behaved people in every country. There's no shortage of Americans who behave badly abroad. And I hate to say it, but it is absolutely true. There are plenty of Britons who behave badly abroad. And I think I've said this before, I think I made videos about this before. I feel utterly embarrassed when I see British sports fans, especially in football and in boxing to a lesser extent, behaving in the most obnoxious, xenophobic, pig ignorant manner. I utterly, it's really, really bothers me. I mean, this recent behaviour of England fans, I mentioned how they invaded IKEA. Um, Well, the day afterwards, well, actually the same evening, there was some girls filmed jumping on an ambulance, and there was lots of disturbances reported. I don't know why the police haven't made any arrests. At least according to the reports, they haven't made any arrests. Now, if that's how they behave in the UK, let's say England loses a semi-final match, right? I dread to think what England fans are going to do, what some England fans are going to do abroad. They're going to absolutely embarrass this country, and in my opinion, they should be stripped of their passports or at least given lifetime bans for football. And unfortunately, I think it's inevitable because it's this pig ignorant mentality that they've had a few drinks, they think they could do whatever they want. So if I had to take a guess, if I had to hazard a guess, after badly behaved Chinese travellers, I think we might unfortunately take second place because there's been a long standing reputation with the British abroad. Um, and it isn't just sports fans, it's also people going on stag do's or hen do's, especially in the Spanish resorts, but also in Southeast Asia, just making an ass out of themselves. Okay, I get it. When you're young, when you're on a holiday, you want to have a good time. But be reasonable. Don't disrespect local customs. Don't disrespect local sites that are sacred and so on. We don't like it when people come to the UK and, as sometimes happens, disrespect our culture and our laws. Um, Ultimately, it comes down to just being a decent human being and having respect. Now, regarding travel, and this is where I might make another video, I get it. It's stressful. You get disappointments, but to attack an airline attendant because your flight's been cancelled because of weather is abhorrent. Okay, you're disappointed, but they're only doing their job. They can't control the weather, and it's better having, being safe than risking a flight in, I don't know, heavy snow. So these badly behaved travelers are actually a minority. Unfortunately, though, they're a big minority. There is a lot of them, and whether it's having too many drinks or whether it's just, I think in the case of Chinese tourists, it's not usually alcohol involved. I think there it's just an entitled mentality. I think with British tourists, it's alcohol, but both ways, it's no excuse. And I think both our country, it's one thing Britain and China has in common. We have badly behaved tourists. And it's not, to generalize. I know most Britons don't behave like this, and most Chinese don't behave like this either. But those of us who don't need to call out those who do. So as a Briton, I say to my Britons fellow Britons who go to other countries and get drunk and make demands and make an ass out of themselves, you're embarrassing us, right? You are, you shouldn't be allowed to travel. It's just flipping embarrassing because it lends to this stereotype of the the British football yob, and it isn't just the English. You get it with the Scots as well, and probably to some extent with the Welsh and Northern Irish, but just by sheer demographics, it's probably the English that stand out the most because there's more of them, right? But yeah, and I'm not saying this is unique to the UK and China. Like I said, there's Americans who have an attitude as well and have an entitled mentality, and you get it in every country. But it is true that some countries stand out more than others. I mean, let's be honest, you don't often hear of Icelanders, behaving the way the Chinese or the British do. So it's not really an equilibrium. We can't say every country's the same because it's not. I'll leave it there, but let me know your thoughts. And needless to say, if you're Chinese, obviously I'm not talking about everyone, but this is something the Chinese government agrees with me on because they have issued guidelines. It's just common sense. I mean, they shouldn't have to issue guidelines. This should be common sense. But I do think that people who do this need to be named and shamed, and they need to be really punished. If they use violence, they need to be jailed, either in the local jurisdiction or in their home country.